Hello everyone, my name is Vam, and welcome back after just a little while. I was out of town the past couple of weeks, but earlier this morning, about like 2 or 3 a.m. apparently, we got some new cards for the NR format, and I am incredibly excited to be taking a look at them, especially with my slightly new React setup. You may look around and notice it looks a little bit different. Right behind me is the Lavender Laboratory, which is very fun to be able to say. But without further ado, let's get into checking out some of these new cards. I already talked about it a little bit with the NR server, so we can get to see what people are so excited to brew with. First off, Centurion Emth the 6th and Gargoyle the 2nd. So these are the two high-level ones, and what's interesting is that they both need each other to turn themselves online. You have one Centurion that targets a Centurion on the field and places it and the other one in the spell and trap zone. But this one can only get onto the field if you send a Centurion that's face up from your field to the graveyard. So you kind of have a weird little bit of a situation where you need one for the other, but the other can't get to the first one. Then we have Arcana Force 15 the Fiend. I'm quickly jumping to this one because this card's not going to get too far. What I'm thinking with this one is someone intentionally rolls tails. And that would be really funny because rolling tails just makes this thing an on-attack board wipe. I don't know. I don't see too much in this, but it is funny. And of course, being funny is definitely something you can see in a card. Back to the Centurions. There isn't much way to get them online unless we look a little downward. Wake Up Centurion. If a monster card is face up in your spell and trap zone, you can declare a level 4 to 8, special summon a Centurion token with the declared level, but it cannot be used as fusion or link material. And during your main phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard to send a Centurion from deck to grave. What's interesting about this is that I need to double check my rulings, but I think you can send the token. So if you can get a monster card in the spell and trap zone, you can get to Gargoyle to get to Emth, which is kind of cool. Anyway, back up to the first row, we have Magi Spectre Porcupine Yamarashi. This card is just gasoline on the fire. Magi Spectre is already really good. I've seen some people saying this card isn't crazy, and it's not. It's a free special summon. It's a free special summon Magi Spectre, but it's already in a extremely good deck. So there's not really any reason to not assume it's going to see some level of playability. It also works with Bunbuku. You can search this with Bunbuku and then you have a link to, which is kind of neat. I mean, it's not really that good from that standpoint, but it is interesting. Next, we have Gruesome Grave Squirmer, which will definitely be seeing play. If you control a fiend, you can special summon it from your hand, then destroy a monster you control that is YUBEL or mentions it. This might be seeing play. You can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon a fiend with 0 attack or defense from your hand or graveyard. I believe this can summon Earthbound Stone Sweeper. Let's double check on that one. No. Groundkeeper has 300. I'm not exactly sure what it could summon. A lot of Sacred Beast stuff for sure, but it'll be interesting to figure out. Next we have Grinder Golem. But what's interesting about this card is that it's actually not hard to use, and I feel like could be used in a lot of funny OTK, FTK strategies. It's a level 8 Dark, where you can reveal a YUBEL monster to special summon this card in your hand to your opponent's field, then you get the YUBEL monster. So it already sets up for your opponent to take a lot of damage. If YUBEL battles this monster, you gain 3,000 life points, and by you, I mean the person with the YUBEL monster, because that effect is a requirement of your opponent. If you special summon a YUBEL while it's in your graveyard, you can special summon this card to your opponent's field. What's important about this triggers Mannequin Cat, and this is a dark monster, which is a little bit terrifying in a funny way. There's no way this is practical, even in cat control decks, but it's funny. And funny is good. I might be brewing with this. Next we have Centurion Bonds. This is also an interesting way to get the Gargoyle and the Emth online, because you can just place one straight from your hand or grave in the spell and trap zone. And then if a Centurion Synchro monster is special summoned, that's never happening because both of the Synchro monsters are URs or SRs. Sadly, it's only useful for getting the engine, I'm doing air quotes, online. Next we have Mature Chronicle. Each time a monster is special summoned, there is a YUBEL monster or mentions it, place a Chronicle counter on this card, remove Chronicle counters from your field to activate one of these effects, special summon YUBEL from your graveyard, add one of your banished cards to your hand, banish a card from your deck, destroy a card in the field, add a super polymerization. This is interesting. So what is interesting is that it instantly gets to 2 counters through Geist Grinder. But that doesn't really do much unless you banish your cards. I don't know when that comes up, but it would be interesting to explore. It is definitely a nice recovery tool. I just don't know if it's actually usable for anything. Next we have Watt Psychic Fighting Porter. This card, I really wish it didn't say Light Monster, because I wish it said Psychic because super quants. But anyway, if you summon 2 or more monsters with the same original type, those monsters can attack directly this turn. If they have the same original level, they can also be not destroyed by battle this turn. This is an interesting card I want to experiment with, because it can summon a lot of funny stuff. Obviously, it works for Watt Psychic Fighter, which is a level 3 light psychic. But I don't know. I think it has some funny potential, but it's also one of those gimmicky cards. I'm not exactly sure what deck it could work in, but it would be fun. Especially with something like an Agent of Creation Venus getting you at least 3 more bodies. Next we have Centurion Phalanx. Target face-up monster card on the field, banish it, and if you do during the standby phase its next turn, special summon it. You can banish this card from your graveyard, target Centurion Synchro monster, that doesn't matter. What's interesting to me, as far as I am aware, this can target Pendulum monsters. And if so, then it's an interesting piece of removal. But I don't think it's that necessary. I think the problem is that you can, at that point, just Dynamiscus or Mystical Space Typhoon or something like that to the Pendulum scale. Because I'm thinking of like a Magi Spectre duel where the thing you'd want to target with a lot of the removal, at least in my experience, is the scales, because the monsters cannot be removed. Very easily, at least. So, but at that point, just Dynamiscus. I don't know, it seems like it's outclassed removal, but it is also interesting to think about, because it does have that modular capability to also just hit monsters on the field. Similar to the way Ichiroku works. Next, we have Watt Cancel. This is an old card that is now being released, as far as I'm aware, I believe. When your opponent would normal or special summon a monster, discard a Watt, negate the summon, and destroy it. That's not bad. That's really not bad. Watt Cobra gets this online very quickly. Watt Cancel doesn't look bad. And of course, I am, ever so slightly coping a bit because, it's Watts. But we also got Watt Psychic Fighting Porter, which can special summon the almighty Watt Hopper, which if you don't know what Watt Hopper does, Watt Hopper makes the Watt Lock. Your opponent cannot select another face-up Watt as an attack target or target them with card effects. So if you get 2 Watt Hopper online, you get an entire attack lock and effect targeting lock. Your opponent would have to have a board wipe. Finally, we got the Singular Legacy Pack card, and what's really interesting about this, it reminds me a lot of Maiden with Eyes of Blue. If you know what that card is, it's a Blue Eyes support card, old school Blue Eyes support, sort of. Once per turn, when a card or effect is activated that targets this card on the field, or when this card is targeted for an attack. Quick effect, you can special summon a snack token. My apologies. I did not realize it was called a snack token. Once per turn, when your opponent would special summon a monster, or monsters, so it can stop pendulum summons, you can tribute a normal monster, negate the special summon, and if you do, destroy that monsters. That's really interesting, and it puts a curb on pendulum decks. Sadly, it's not level 3 or lower, it is a light, but Light Plant has, I believe, a few capabilities that are fairly interesting, but snack token. My gosh, I did not realize it was called that. That's amazing. But what's interesting about this is you can target it with your own card effects. So things like equip spells like Moon Mirror Shield work. Obviously, no one's going to be playing Moon Mirror Shield just for this, but it's really interesting. And you can also play it with, other tokens. Things like, I don't know, Hippo Carnival. If anyone plays it, I can't think of many token generators on the fly, but It's thought-provoking, definitely. And it's weak enough where it's not a stun card entirely, although I'm not sure. I wish it negated the attack if it was targeted for an attack, but it doesn't. So if your opponent attacks into this, it's killing it. I don't know, I find it kind of interesting to think about new cards, Watt Psychic Fighting Porter, Seed Spitting Sapling, Watt Cancel. It feels like, obviously they're Watt cards, so it's a little bit obvious, but it seems kind of interesting to think of these new cards working together. Like, even throw in Centurion Phalanx, and you can protect a Watt Hopper for a turn without destroying it, without permanently removing it, something like that. You could also just Ichiroku's Ledger Book it. I believe so. I believe Ichiroku targets your opponent's monsters. Yes. So Centurion Phalanx can protect a Watt Hopper, which is neat. Then something like Watt Cancel can also work. And Watt Psychic Fighter, what Watts do we have? Or Watt? That are level 3 or lower. We have Watt Squirrel, Watt Psychic Fighter, obviously. That's interesting. Watt Dragon... Is this a quick play? It is a quick play. So you can actually use Watt Psychic Fighter as a disruption, as kind of like a DD Crow, which is kind of cool. Watt Dragonfly, Watt Hopper, Watt Cobra is not a target. Watt Barracks, Watt Kid, which is a normal monster. See, look, all of these cards are working together. All of them are turning into something very bad but very funny. Watt Kiwi, Watt Mole, which is funny. Watt Woodpecker, Watt Beta, Watt Lemur, Watt Fox, and that is all the Watts in the game, but that's a lot of Watts. So you can play Watt Cobra, Watt Hopper, Watt Dragonfly, Watt Psychic Fighter even, because it is a Watt. And you can even play a Watt Squirrel, or not Watt Squirrel, a Watt Barracks if you wanted to, and you can go into Stardust Charge Warrior or something like that. I don't know, it's interesting because you can also get the lock on very quickly. You can summon a Watt Dragonfly and a Watt Hopper or a pair of Watt Dragonflies. Or even normal summon Cobra, go to battle phase, swing in with the Cobra, and then Watt Psychic Fighting Porter can special summon what it summons, what it searches, and something else you have in your hand, which is really, really cool. If you have Watt Dragonflies, maybe you can search a Watt Dragonfly and double crash, or you can just search the Watt Hopper. It's interesting to think about, definitely for sure. Oh, Watt Kinetic Puppeteer as well, which I don't think this has any practical purposes, but it's interesting to think about. We don't have, oh, we do have the old Watt Cancel artwork, I see. It's interesting. We have 2 artworks of an N card now, which is fun. Then we have Watt Cancel, oh, actually, this might be the unreleased artwork. And it's only showing the release date. No, it's showing the old release date. This is showing the new release date. I'm not entirely sure. Watt Cannon, Watt Keeper. This is a reborn for Watts, which is nice. Then you have Watt Cannon. This is bad. I might be cooking with Watts. You know, that sounds funny. And with that, also, I might be cooking with Centurions and YUBEL. This pack, you know, small dosage. I don't know, relatively speaking, but it feels a little smaller than usual. I could be wrong. A lot to think about with this one, especially with cards like Grinder Golem, the Centurions, and Watt Cancel, and Watt Psychic Fighting Porter, funny enough. Every single card has the potential to be something utterly ridiculous and funny. Is looking at all of those jank decks, even just beyond the top 3 tiers. So, with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. My name is Van, and I'll see you next time at the Lavender Laboratory. Peace.